Hi there, this is Dani, and I'm so glad you're here. The name of the channel is You and Me Living Free. Today I want to talk about trip planning in my minivan camper for a trip that is going to be the longest trip I've taken. This is going to be 7 weeks, and I'm actually going to Washington and Oregon, to Montana, and hopefully Wyoming and South Dakota, and maybe Colorado. So when it comes to taking a trip like this, I have to do more planning than what I normally do. And so I thought I would just share some of the resources, some of the tips and ideas, some of the apps, and some kind of my process for going through, because I am not a planner, but I do find that a certain amount of planning is really prudent, especially this is the summer of 2021. We have wildfires going on out west. We have heat almost everywhere, is excessive heat, and it keeps coming in waves, as you know. So we're getting ready for another great big one here in Kansas. Last week we had a couple of days that were upper 90s with heat index over 100, and then I think tomorrow and the next day are also going to be those kind of really, really hot days. There are very few places in the country. One of the places I want to go is Missoula, Montana. I have a friend there, and they're in the 90s and sometimes upper 90s lately. So because of these restrictions, also because of the pandemic and the restrictions on campgrounds and things like that, and national parks, a lot of the national parks are having ticketing systems. You're having to make reservations. You can't just drive up. So there's a lot of things going on right now that make planning even more important. But having said all that, I don't like to be at a certain place at a certain time. So I don't particularly like making campground reservations or anything. I would prefer to camp on BLM and on national forest ground. And I prefer to camp for free. And then every once in a while, if I need it, I can go to a hotel or something. So anyway, I just thought I would share that. So let's do this in segments. I'm going to talk about just the geography and kind of the inspiration, deciding where to go, and then kind of the geography as I map things out and how I do that, and then how I plan for things like weather and the fires, and also the national camp grounds, national parks, and knowing what's closed, what's open, how do I navigate that, and everything. So I'm going to take you through in segments, and so let's get started. So inspiration. You have your own methods for inspiration, so I won't bore you with a bunch of that, but I just want to say that I do have a place. It's actually the Notes app on my phone, and actually maybe I'll try to show like a picture of that here. I'll try to increase my editing skills and add a picture to the video. I've never done that before, so this is a milestone moment. So on my phone, I have an app that is bucket list, and I just keep a list of every place I've heard of, every place that I might want to research, every place that anybody tells me about, things from lists and stuff that I find. So anyway, this is my like dumping ground for every place that I kind of want to go. That way, when I do get to the trip planning stage, then I can look at all of those things and start to put them together. So now we're actually ready to start planning out the trip, start laying out the geography. And I find that there's nothing better than the atlas to help me get an initial kind of feel for where things are, what is close to it, what is far away, how long is it going to take me to get there, what are the possible routes. So Google Maps and my atlas, I kind of go back and forth. I'm a very visual person, so I like to be able to look at things like this. And it just helps me start to get an idea. Plus, as I'm looking at this, I can see, at least on the atlas, of places I might be passing through that would be of interest, like a certain national park or a sand dune or a national forest, something like that. It starts to give me more ideas than what I already have. So now that I'm starting to get an idea of the broad strokes of the trip and I start to break things down a little bit, these are my chicken scratches. I'm sorry this is such poor quality, but I'm just scribbling. And so from Olympic National Park to Mount Rainier, it's about a 3-hour drive. From Mount Rainier to the Cascades, it's about a 4-hour drive. And I start to put this down in segments. I see where my big jumps are, where my big blocks are, and I start to think about where I could go in between to break up the trip a little bit. So on the next picture, you'll kind of see where I'm going to try to get from KC to the Rockies in one day, even though that's a 10-hour drive. That's a lot more than I like to do, but that's going to get me to cooler weather, and it's super hot here in Kansas. So then after that, you can't really read it, but it says from Denver to Salt Lake City is about an 8-hour drive, and there is a Cracker Barrel there. So now I'm starting to fine-tune just a little bit and give myself possibilities. One of the next things I start to look at is the weather. I Googled average monthly temps for every city that I wanted to visit. That gave me monthly temps, but it wasn't taking into account the heat wave. So when it gets closer to trip time, I look at more specifics. This is the national forecast for the next 10 days. The yellow and the red are obviously like 80s, 90s, really high temps. So those are areas that I want to avoid. And so I just look at some weather maps and some forecast maps to see how warm it's going to be in the areas that I want to go. Then I dial it down and get more specific. This is the weather app on my phone. You can actually program in 10 or 15 different destinations. So every destination that I'm going to go to, I have programmed into my weather app, and I can look at 10 days, what are the predicted highs and lows. This is a really cool thing. I highly recommend it, and it's super easy to do if you haven't thought of it or haven't done it. So when we're at this stage of the planning, I am really pooling all my information. I take those initial bucket list, initial notes that I told you about, and I create a slide presentation in Google, mostly because I can reach this no matter where I am. So this is my one for the Northwest, and over to the left you see the slides. I'll take one attraction and put it on each slide, and then I put everything I need to know on that slide. I put where I can camp for free in the area, I put things that I've heard about it, and I put certain hikes or certain attractions that I am not to miss. So that way I have everything in one place, because when I'm doing research I get things in so many different places. So this is where I put it all together. This is something else that is not fun to talk about, but it has to be, especially in the season that we are in with wildfires, drought out west. So this is a website that I found, INCIWEB. It's a national government site, and it shows me in real time where the fires are. And if you click on one of these, it will tell you how many acres and what percentage of it is contained. And so it's a very helpful resource to have. And I look at every place I'm thinking of going, and then I keep this website tabbed on my phone so that I can use it for looking at while I'm traveling. And so here's another thing we have to plan for. I'm sorry this image is black. I had the dark background on. I don't know why, but this is me just looking up different national parks, because I have to go to their websites. I have to know whether there's a ticketing system or whatever. One of the first places I really wanted to go and spend like my first week was Rocky Mountain National Park. Come to find out they have timed entry, and for the whole week I want to go, they don't have any slots available. Wah, wah. Anyway, so here's another thing I'm going to talk about: gas prices. Okay, I'm going to do this quickly. I look at the average gas prices per state. I just Googled this and got a complete list, and then I pay special attention to the states I want to go in, because have you ever been driving along and you kind of need gas and you think, well, $3.15 is kind of high, I'll just wait till I cross the border and get gas there, and then it's $3.85 and you're like, well, I wish I would have known that. Just silly little things. I like to generally know what the gas prices are. Then this is Gas Buddy. I use this when I'm actually in the town, because the other thing that's frustrating is when you fill up for $2.85 and then you're driving back to the interstate and you see a place that has it for $2.35 that you didn't know was there. I'm kind of cracking myself up a little because I say I'm not a planner, but these things have frustrated me in the past. So these are actually two of the apps that I have downloaded to help me, the Gas Buddy and then the Googling state gas prices that help me not feel frustrated, hopefully. Okay, I promise we're almost done. Two more things I want to talk about. The Aurora Borealis and seeing it, or the Northern Lights, is something that's on my bucket list. So I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to talk about how I find my free campsites. So here's the Aurora forecast. Here's the website if you want to screenshot this. This is where I go. And here is some text explaining that the Northern Lights are caused by what's happening on the sun. And basically the sun is on a 27-day rotation. So your chances for seeing the Aurora Borealis, given where you are in the country, is different on different days. I would love to get it in the red. The green is like, oh, you probably won't see it. The yellow is like, you might see it. And the red is like, you probably will see it. And then the map here goes through a 24-hour cycle and shows you the hours in which you can see it and the places which you might be able to see it. So fingers crossed for me, everybody. So now I'm just going to show you a few screenshots to give you examples. This is Campendium and iOverlander. Those are the two main apps I use to find free campsites. I will find, normally I don't plan exactly where I'm going to camp. I just want to know that within the area I want to be, there are options. And if I hear about any place that's great or I want to go someplace specific, I take these screenshots and put them back in my slideshow so that I remember of particularly good places. But really I just go to an area and I want to make sure there's plenty of free camping around so that if one area doesn't pan out, then I can go somewhere else. This is a really good practice. It has served me very well, and so that is generally what I use. Now, believe it or not, you've made it to the end of another video. So you know what you deserve. A medal. Thanks so much. Catch you next time.